know that the system often wants you to play this game of intimate revolts and so on, so that the machinery functions. And the thing to do is precisely not to do it. But my more basic reproach here is that this opposition is simply too vulgar one. That is to say, either ontology, that is to say, some kind of positive law which necessarily generates revolt, revolution out of social contradictions, or we are on our own. Nonetheless, I think it's an elementary dialectical insight that we can have what Lukács in the 20s called objective possibility, what today Alain Badiou is calling le site événementiel, the potential site of the event. That is to say, it's not any kind of logical guarantee that with some iron necessity revolution will explode. But, my God, there is nothing metaphysical, idealist, teleological in looking around and analyzing potential sites of explosions. And here, I not only think that this search for potential sites is legitimate, I even think that we have a more or less convincing, concrete answer. My answer would be what? Okay, there are many interesting examples, candidates here. Critchley mentions two concrete figures which could be proposed as a kind of a universal singularity, a singular fate which can serve as a metaphor for what is wrong for the victims of oppression today. One would be Guantanamo prisoners. I don't like this as a metaphor, because again, they are victims. And I don't like when the model proposed to us is that of passive, helpless victims. Because I think that, here I agree with Jacques Rancière, his wonderful text in the last issue of South Atlantic Quarterly, where he emphasizes that this is the latest cynical manipulation with human rights. They are ultimately the rights of those who have no rights, the victims. Which means that, what does it mean today? What's the basic functioning of human rights today? How they concretely function? Is that, again, we evoke them when we have some victims, Afghani women, whatever, who, by definition, cannot themselves enact their rights. If they do, we immediately condemn them as fundamentalists, of course. So basically, we have to do it for them. So I think human rights are ultimately our rights to do a humanitarian intervention whenever we want. This is why I don't like Guantanamo prisoners, although there is a lot to say. As yesterday, maybe I should repeat it because it's a nice example, as yesterday I mentioned at London Review of Bookstore. Nonetheless, there is something interesting about not so much Guantanamo prisoners as the Abu Ghraib prisoners, namely how they were designated by an American congressman. I heard it on TV when I was there recently, as in defense of what happened there. This congressman proposed the following reasoning. I found it wonderful, magic. He said, but they are those who were missed by the bombs. You know what was his reasoning? They were our legitimate targets. We were trying to kill them. We missed them, we arrested them. So, wait a minute, what's the problem? Whatever we do to them now, it's less than killing them. So what right do they have to protest? I mean, it's an incredible logic. But again, it's not some crazy right-winger, it's a member of American Congress. So we can see that although I disagree with him totally from the political standpoint, from my good friend Giorgio Agamben, that here you have a nice example of how his category that he resuscitated of homo sacer, those who are alive but without any political symbolical place, is an effective category for political analysis. Those missed by the bombs is the formula of homo sacer at its purest. You are missed by the bombs, which means you are alive, but you are a living dead. You have no right because we can do whatever we want to you, because whatever we do, you lost, as it were, your right to live. Okay, that's one candidate. The next possible candidate would be Palestinians. And there is a nice dialectical twist in it, because the ultimate victims are Jews. And what can be more absurd than to be the victim of the ultimate victims, how should I put it? No, it's kind of the ultimate difficult position. Because whatever you do, it's even difficult to be, in some liberal circles, to express your solidarity with them. Because whenever you do it, you are accused of potentially being already anti-Semitic and so on and so on. I mean, for example, for my book, Welcome to the Desert of the Real, I was accused, although it was well received in Israel, I was accused by some of them of solidarity with the Nazi final solution and so on and so on. Okay, so for reasons that I don't want to develop now, I don't think this one works. But I think there is a subject today, and it will be very naive what I will propose to you now. It is simply the slum dwellers. First, and my source here is not only the New Left, the article review of some books by Mike Davis. I read more, I did my homework. First, are we aware that they are not marginal, that there are today already 1 billion people who live in slums, who live precisely almost, okay, in this homo sacer position, being part of the national economy somehow, but deprived of political rights and so on. Are we aware again that there are almost 1 billion of them? Are we aware that this is the fastest explosion of population today is the explosion of slums? Are we aware just of the numbers? That, for example, around Lagos, Abidjan, Lagos, in that axis, there are 70 million. Are we aware that they are exploding in China and so on and so on? And the reason I find this interesting is that how we have here masses of people who are, and this fits perfectly a potential proletarian position, who are, a necessary product of today's globalization, because as we all know, one of the key elements of today's globalization is how it's no longer the first world exports industrial products or software or intellectual products to get the results of labor of agriculture. It's almost the other way around. One of the most effective measures of neocolonialism is to control third world countries by making them dependent on the food supply from the developed countries. No? I mean, that's, for example, the model case here, as you probably know, is Indonesia. How the whole logic changed. The basic idea is you organize in a country more effective plantations. Whatever farmers are displaced in the cities have to work, most of them turn into slum dwellers and so on and so on, and the country grows dependent on food imports from developed countries. So again, we have something which is produced necessarily by today's global logic. We have large numbers of people. Their position is precisely, if you permit me this Lacanian reference, extimate. It's intimate in the sense of being part of the system in the very heart, but extimate in the sense of they are not part of the legitimate law and order space. Somehow outside, but nonetheless integrated. As outsiders, they are needed for drug distribution, for crimes, or for other things and